Bitch, what's up? What's the stuff? Shit, they keep on touching up. There's no touch, I just scratch. Just fuck that usury. All they talk is the screamy shit. I just like the bitch. Then yet this way you still listening. Pockets blowing up. Watch your eye in the drop shit. Where they expect us? I got a lot of fucking Spider-Man. All I know is trouble in the damn man.
What's up, YouTube? This is your king of the night, Vincent Valentine, me ex-Turk. And I'm coming with you with a brand new video. This is going to be different than the reaction video. This is going to be different than my streams and my gaming video. But this involves gaming still. But this is going to be a discussion. I'm going to make this a game. I'm going to talk about Final Fantasy facts that you never knew. But here's the thing. I can't use Google. I can't use Final Fantasy Wiki. I can't use nothing. Only the power of my mind. So, and this will give me an excuse to use one of my new cosplay pictures as a profile, as what you call thumbnail. So let's get ready. The very first fact: Vincent Valentine in the concept art after the finished concept art with the red and black iconic designs, he didn't start out with this iconic Cerberus gun as his weapon. In fact, he actually started out with a scythe, but they then later on tested them more, scrapped it out and put a gun instead of a scythe, since there was not really any gunslinging characters. I mean, Barrett was kind of, but not really a gunslinging character. Plus, the scythe just didn't fit Vincent Valentine the way, Plus, Vincent Valentine. Another fact, number 2, Vincent Valentine was supposed to be a horror researcher, and that's how he gets the power of chaos. But they changed it to organize with the original thing. And then the retcon story after the concept story was when Vincent Valentine knew Sephiroth's mother, fell in love with Sephiroth's mother, got rejected, to just save his life. But Hojo killed Vincent, and Lucretia saved Vincent's life by giving him chaos. Thus, Vincent Valentine lives as an accursed, half immortal. If you really think about it, but that's kind of the retcon story. But in the concept art, he was supposed to be a horror researcher that gets the power from going into haunted places. Alright, now let's talk about other Final Fantasies. In Final Fantasy VIII, Renoa was supposed to have blonde hair, but they changed it because I guess they wanted to go back to black because Tifa Lockhart was one of the hottest characters in Final Fantasy. So, now back to Final Fantasy VII. Final Fantasy VII, Aeris and Sephiroth were meant to be cousins. Now, here's the thing. They did it in a way in the original game where it was kind of like the concept. Since there are I believe in the possible theory of Lucretia Crescent being Alphania's sister or cousin or related to her some way. So I believe that some of the concepts were in the game, but before they were supposed to be directly related. And actually, Aeris was supposed to be Sephiroth's sister, but it got changed. Okay, next one. The next one. In Final Fantasy, I'm trying to think. Final Fantasy. Let's see. I'm trying. The original Final Fantasy that was supposed to be on the N64 that eventually became 7 was kind of a reboot of Final Fantasy 6 or an extra chapter of Final Fantasy 6 with 3D graphics, and it was only a tech demo. But due to Square Enix not being able to fit things in a Nintendo cartridges, due to them not being able to fit things in a Nintendo cartridge, 64 cartridge, they cut their relationship off with Nintendo and got with Sony, and Final Fantasy VII has been made. Another thing too, in the original Final Fantasy X beta test, Tidus actually originally had black hair. So he was originally supposed to look exactly like a younger version of Jack and not the traditional blonde hair you see. But then again, they wanted to go back to what they had in their old concepts, and like, well, Cloud's a popular character and he has blonde hair, so they put it on Titus. But Titus originally had black emo-ish type of hair. As a matter of fact, in the game, they kind of saved some of those concepts, because as a kid, Titus actually had brown hair, but he didn't want to be anything like his father, so he dyed his hair blonde in the game. But, you know, some of those concepts were actually used in the game, you know, just like with every other thing. In Final Fantasy 13, Saz never had an afro, and he never was a black stereotype like he was in 13, or the goofy, you know, black stereotype character. As a matter of fact, he had long black hair, kind of tannish skin, but he was pretty much just as white as, you know, just a tan white, you know, white like snow and Sid Reigns. But, you know, it got changed just because they needed more diversity. And I'll be quite honest, I kind of like the Saz that's in 13, to be quite honest. In Final Fantasy VII, Barrett's not the very first black character in Final Fantasy game history. It was actually General Leo from Final Fantasy VI. General Leo from Final Fantasy VI is the very first black character of Final Fantasy. So there we go. That's where your history actually was from. But they did reuse some of the same concepts, as Barrett was in 7, Kyros is in 8, you know, and so on and so on. I'm trying to think of what else. This is going to be really hard. This game is just tough, because I got to think about every little thing. Final Fantasy, the reason why Final Fantasy 9 has Final Fantasy 1 overtones is because Final Fantasy 1 is actually connected to 9. That's why the same concepts exist, such as the Archfiends of Chaos, Garland still at the evil plan of trying to dominate the world, or, you know, some evil deities. So Final Fantasy 1 is actually connected to 9. It's just millions and millions of years after, which explains why Garland's an old ass man. So what else do we got? Oh yeah, Final Fantasy, which everyone should already know this. If you don't know this, then either you're not a Final Fantasy fan, or you're just not a fan of gaming, or you just don't keep up with gaming journalism. But Final Fantasy 15 was already supposed to come out in the PS3, and it was called Final Fantasy Versus 13. Now, I like the concept of Final Fantasy Versus 13. I'll be honest, I like the concept of Final Fantasy Versus 13 and stuff like that. But it never became a game. It ended up becoming Final Fantasy 15 after 10 years of development, and then director Tetsuya Nomura gave the project to Hajime Tabata, which became the current Final Fantasy 15. But Final Fantasy 15 was originally supposed to come out in the PS3 and become 2006 Versus 13, an extended universe of the 13 universe. But it still contains Fabula Crystallis Novia overtones, and I don't care what anyone says, I still believe it. It still kept some of the concepts. It just is not called Fabula Crystallis Novia directly, but it's connected to, it has ties to the Fabula Crystallis Novia. So, you know, the concepts still kind of stay the same, just name change everything and change the concept to make it look like a new game. But actually, Final Fantasy 15 is actually really an old game. They just changed the name, upgraded graphics, upgraded characters, models, upgraded character personalities, and it became Final Fantasy 15. But it's been through a 10-year development, and at first it was called Versus 13, so Final Fantasy 15 is not a new game like you think it is. It's just a repolished Fabula Crystallis Novia game that never really got the full release because Tetsuya Nomura was taking so long because he wanted the game to be perfect, and he was working on other stuff too. Now, the Final Fantasy VII remake, it was, even though it says it was going to come out 2015 and we got 2 trailers already, it was actually originally announced 2006 with the tech demo, but it had Final Fantasy 13 graphics. It didn't have the Unreal Engine graphics like you see on the new trailer. So they only teased the idea out, but they canceled the project and brought the project back due to fan demand. So, yes, now they're really working on Final Fantasy VII Remake, but nonetheless, the Final Fantasy VII Remake was actually teased in 2006. Okay, I'm trying to think of another fact. It's hard to do it without Google. Now, Final Fantasy VII Advent Children, the complete edition, the reason why that movie was a lot longer, and it was 3 hours long, is it's all the deleted footage from the original movie put back into a Blu-ray cinematic experience, plus added new scenes to include Crisis Core overtones in the movie, as well as the OVA One Way to Smile. Now, there are another fact. There are Final Fantasy novels. Final Fantasy novels for each game. For 7, there's the Henry Townsend one where it's about the reporter who reports everything Shinra's doing. The Crisis Core novelization, the One Way to Smile, and a plethora of others for 7. And then the 13 novels with the Fal'Cie and l'Cie gods. So you get extra lore of those gods in the Fabric Crystallis Novia. So there are actual novels you can actually buy. Now I don't know if there's English translations, but if there are a good read if you could do that. In fact, I started reading my stuff online, and that's how I know so much. So they do actually have real books and audio books and digital books of novels that are attributed to the game, so you can get into the game's lore a lot more. Now, Final Fantasy now Dissidia was not the very first Final Fantasy fighting game. The very first Final Fantasy fighting game was with Final Fantasy VII characters, and the game was called Urgets. After Square Enix bought the rights to Namco's Urgets, they put their own characters in it, and it kind of turned more into a Final Fantasy VII 3D fighter 3D fighter. So pretty much Urgets was actually the very first fighting game before Dissidia on the PSP. But they did take some concepts from the game and added to Dissidia as well. Now, Sephiroth's costume in Dissidia, another fact. Sephiroth's costume is actually, from Dissidia, is actually based off the concept artwork when he's wearing beads on his arms, on his wrist, and beads on parts of his costumes, and those one bangles with gems in it. Those are actually based off the concept art Amano have done. In fact, most of the Dissidia costumes are based off Amano's artwork. Even the white-haired Barts. So that's another fact too. I'm trying to think of another fact. Oh yeah, another fact of Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy 2 and 3 in America on the Super Nintendo, because Japan thought we were stupid and we would never figure it out. In the American release for Final Fantasy 2 and 3, 2 was actually 4 and 3 was actually 6. They thought that we would never figure that out, but years later we figured it out and pretty much got backlash for that, so every re-release got the rightful title, and we finally got Final Fantasy 2 and 3. So, they kind of redid that when Sony bought out when Sony bought most of Square Enix's rights to Final Fantasy. They demanded to have the Final Fantasy 2 and 3 things. Now, 3 didn't come out on the PlayStation, but they demanded that they get the rightful numbers because we were screwed out. Final Fantasy Mystic Quest was an RPG for babies, because for some reason Japan likes to make fun of us and act like we're a bunch of Asperger kids. So that's why when you go to a retro game store, Final Fantasy Mystic Quest is only $12, because it's an RPG making fun of how stupid us Americans are. So pretty much, yeah, those are actually the facts I could think of. I hope you enjoy the game, and may the crystal be with you. I hope you learned something new.